welcome. In this video, we're talking about standard form. Now, standard form is a type of linear equation. What that means is it's going to give us a line when we graph it. Also means that the exponent on x is a 1. So this is a linear equation in standard form. Now, there are some requirements for standard form linear equations. The first requirement is that, let's talk about what these things are before. So A, B, and C are numbers, are coefficients, or this one's a constant. So this is an integer. This is an integer. And this one's an integer. And what an integer is just a whole number. Now, an integer can be positive or negative, but in this case, we have some restrictions. A is an integer and must be positive. B and C, they can be positive or negative. And again, C is the same thing. It can be positive or negative. B is attached to Y, and X is attached to A. These two are your variables. So this is your standard X and your standard Y. These are your variables. Let me see if I can get another color. Again, standard X and Y. So let's look at an example. So let me write this out in a thinking bubble. So standard form. It means no fractions. It means A must be positive. We also notice that we have X and Y on the same side. So X and Y must be on the same side. And the last thing is our constant, just our number by itself, has to be on the opposite side. All right, so let's look at an example here of something potentially in standard form. 3x minus 5y is equal to 16. Now, it has to meet all of the requirements in order to be in standard form. So do we have fractions in here? 3y and 16, that's what we're looking for. There are no fractions, so far so good. A must be positive is A positive. This is B, and this is C. So A is positive, B is negative, but that's okay. B can be positive or negative. X and Y must be on the same side. So do we have an X and Y on the same side? Here's your sides. Here's your dotted line. Constant on the opposite side. So the number by itself has to be by itself on the opposite side. So this one is yes in standard form. Now let's say we have example number 2. Let's show you an example that does not work. So if we have 3/4 x minus 2y is equal to, I don't know, 5. This one is not in standard form because we have a fraction. No fractions are allowed. So this is not in standard form. Let's do another example. So we have negative 3x minus 5y is equal to 6. Again, this is not in standard form because a needs to be positive. So let's do an example of something that's not in standard form, but we make it in standard form. So example number 1, let's say we have that original question, 3/4 x minus 2y is equal to 5. And our question is, make this into standard form. So in this case, what is wrong with this equation? Why is this not in standard form? So we already said this in example number 2, that this is not in standard form because we have a fraction. So we need to get rid of the fraction. And the way to do that is you look at the denominator, whatever's in the bottom, and you're going to multiply that by every single term. So we have 3/4 x minus 2y is equal to 5. I'm taking my denominator, which is 4. If you have other denominators, you just have to multiply them together. And I'm going to multiply every single one by 4. So what I end up having is 4 times 3 divided by 4x minus 4 times 2y is equal to 4 times 5. So here's the 4, here's the 4, and here's the 4 that I multiplied by. So in this case, what happens here? 4 times is the opposite of divided by 4. That goes away. So what do I have left over? I have 3x minus 4 times 2 is 8y is equal to 4 times 5 is 20. And now this equation no longer has fractions. A is positive, x and y are by itself, and the numeric is by itself. Now let's say they give us another example of a fraction that is not of a fraction, of an equation that is not in standard form. So typically what we're going to see is either we're going to see a slope-intercept that we want in standard form, or they'll give us point-slope form that we want. So let's say we have y is equal to 2x plus 8. And our question, our goal is make this fraction, why do I keep saying fraction? Make this equation into standard form. So looking at what we need to do, we cannot have fractions. A must be positive, x and y must be on the same side. So step number 1, let's do that. Let's make x and y on the same side. So we're going to make x and y on the same side. Once we have that on the same side, then we can focus that the constant, just the numeric, is on the other side. So I have y here. I'm going to move 2x. Now 2x is a positive bubble. So I'm going to undo that by making it a negative bubble. Positive bubble, negative, go away. So now I have negative 2x plus y, bring down the 8, bring down the 8. So what do I have? I have x and y on the same side, 8 on the other side. So far, so good. Step 2, make sure A is positive. If you have a negative, multiply by -1 for each term. And what that does, this switches or flips each sign. So for example, if I have my negative 2x plus y equals 8, and I'm going to take and I'm going to multiply each one by negative 1. And I'm multiplying, I'm not subtracting, I'm multiplying. So what this does is it changes the sign for every single number. So this now becomes positive 2x, this becomes minus y, and this now becomes minus 8. It switches, it flips the sign. So now, step 3, check if you have fractions. So if you have fractions, to remove, multiply by the denominator, by each denominator, one step at a time. So since we do not have fractions, this is then my equation. X and y are on the same side, the numbers on the opposite side. A is positive, A is also not a fraction. There are no fractions here. That's it, we're done. This is our standard form. Let's do one more example. Let's do one with another fraction. Let's do fractions. Let's do one in point slope form with a fraction. Y minus 8 is equal to 3/4 times x plus, oh, I don't know. Let's do a pretty number. Let's do 2. So when you have something like this is called the point slope form. This is in point slope form. So now that we have in point slope form, step number 1 is going to distribute the slope. And what that means is you're going to take your slope, you're going to take your m, and you're going to multiply that to the inside bubble. So what you have is y minus 8 is equal to 3/4 times x and 3/4 times 2. So again, that's 3/4 times x and 3/4 times 2. Now this 2 is on top. It does have a secret 1 on the bottom because mathematicians are lazy. We don't like to write 1 on the bottom if it's a whole number, but it is there. So now what do we have? We're going to simplify. So I have 3/4 x, that's 3/4 x, plus 3 times 2 is 6 divided by 4. Now 6 divided by 4, we can simplify that. It's still going to end up being a fraction. Remember how I said this example is going to be fractions. But let's simplify this even further. So I have 3/4 x plus, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, here's my thinking bubble, 6/4, I can go divide top and bottom by 2. So that means I have 3/2. I'm just simplifying that fraction. Okay, now what do we want? What's our objective? We want to make this into standard form. How do we make this into standard form? After we distribute the slope, we're going to move on to step number 2, which was our original step number 1. Step number 2 is make x and y on the same side. So where is your y? Where is your x? Well, your x is right over here. Your y is right over here. Here's your x. Here's your y. We want them on the same side. So what I'm going to choose to do first is I'm going to choose to move my 8 first. I need to get rid of it. So I'm going to add 8 to both sides. So these go away, so I have y, then I have 3/4 x plus 3/2 plus 8. And I'm going to leave the plus 3/2 plus 8 for right now because that's not what step number 2 is. Step number 2 is to move the x and the y on the same side. So now I have y here and I still have this x. This x bubble is positive, so I'm going to move this x bubble by making it opposite, by making a minus 3/4 x bubble. So I'm going to do a minus 3/4 x bubble. So what does that give me? That gives me negative 3/4 x plus y is equal to 3/2 plus 8. Now for step number 3, I'm going to simplify. Combine things. So if I have 8 and 3/2, I can write that. I have 8 and 3/2. So negative 3/4 x plus y is equal to 8 and 3/2. You can do that because this is addition. But here's my thinking bubble. I know that I'm going to be getting rid of fractions, so I'm going to change that to an improper fraction. It's going to make our lives easier. And an improper fraction, we go 4 times 8 plus 3. So we do 4 times 8 plus 3. 4 times 8 is 32. 32 plus 3, that means I have 35/4 here. So I have negative 3/4 x plus y is equal to 35/4. Okay, now that we're here, we got to get rid of our denominator. So what denominator do you have? I have a 4. We need to get rid of the 4. Let's do this. Step number 4. Ooh, what was step number 4 originally? I think it was if you have a negative, change all the signs. So we do have a negative here. Change all signs if A is negative. In this case, it is negative. See, change all signs if A is negative. That's step number 4. Let's do that before we deal with the denominator. So A is negative. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change all the signs. This one now is a positive 3/4 x. This one now is a minus y equals, and this one now is a minus 35/4. Now I'm going to deal with my denominator. I have a denominator of 4, so I need to multiply everything by 4. Now that I am multiplying everything by 4, my 4's cancel out. I have left over 3x minus, I have 4 times y, that is 4y, equals to, now this one's pretty cool because I have a 4 on the bottom, 4 on top. That goes away and I have negative 35. Here it is, you guys. I have x and y both on the same side. I have no fractions here. I have an a that is positive, and that is all of our requirements that are all, tongue twister. Those are the requirements for standard form. Here's our answer when we are given a point slope form. All right, beautiful people, thank you so much for watching my video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.